じゃあ、始めね。Konnichiwa, Shig Senpai Ade, Yokoso. Obviously, I'm not going to do this entire video series in Japanese because, as you can see from the title, this is Lesson 0. Lesson 0 of what is going to be a series of videos that I'm going to do that is basically just teaching people that want to learn Japanese, the Japanese language, the way that I learned it, and ways that I wish I had been taught it, and things that I learned along the way. So, I guess for background, I took like a year of Japanese, my final year of university, and I was really good at it and was really interested in it. And then sometime a little after that, I went and lived in Kyoto, Japan for almost 2.5 years, working as a research assistant at Kyoto University. And while there, also met Harakaze Sensei, which you will hear and see much more of in future installments of this, where we opened an English school together in Kyoto. And so I still regularly do things with her, and she's going to be helping me with these lessons. But yeah, so in the almost 2.5 years that I lived there, when I arrived, I could read really well, but I had very little experience speaking, and so it was really like a hermit my first few months in Japan because my conversational Japanese ability was dog crap. I couldn't understand anything and could barely express myself. And it took a few months for me to work up the courage to go and put a post out there looking for language exchange partners to try to just come out of my shell and slowly, painfully get better at the language. And by the end of it, I was every day living my entire life in spoken Japanese, handling my daily business, paying my bills, talking to people on the street and in department stores, all of it Japanese, just from being there and working on it. And so I just want to kind of share my personal experience and education with you guys, and hopefully you'll learn some Japanese with me. So what this lesson 0 is going to cover is obviously the very beginning of my opinion is if you do not do these things, you cannot learn Japanese. You cannot go forward without this. And it's going to cover what's called the kana in the language. I'm going to do a little bit of pronunciation, and then I'm going to end it with some study tools and techniques that I've used. So let's get into it. Starting with the kana. And the kana is, you can essentially think of it as like the alphabet in Japanese, but they don't represent a letter so much as they represent a sound that is said in the language. And there's 2 tables of kana. There is the Hiragana, which is like the regularly written Japanese, and katakana, which is a simplified version that's often used for loan words from other countries. And we'll see some examples of this. Before we start, I already know some of you right now are saying to me, why? Why, Shig Senpai? Why are you going to make me learn to read? I just want to speak Japanese. Kohai, I will tell you why you must start with the kana. It's because most of the resources you're going to have to use, outside of my videos to help you learn Japanese, are going to be in text format. And most text Japanese books use kana. For sure, the ones that are worth any of your time, they're all going to use kana. And so you need to be able to read it because this is just going to make your learning the language more effective and more efficient. You're only helping yourself by doing this up front. Similarly, the kana is actually pretty easy to learn. And so, it's sort of like a show of dedication on your part about, this is the very beginning, and if the first thing you're wanting to figure out is how can I take a shortcut around something, how can I skip the kana and just get to the speaking, you're already putting yourself on a bad foot for learning the language if you're starting by looking for shortcuts. You've got to start at the beginning. And the other point I have about this is that if you'll do it, because it's pretty easy to do, it's a really easy to achieve first step in what's going to be your long journey in learning the language. And these little moments of accomplishment are critical for propelling you through a process that honestly takes years. for you to actually be effective at. You have to have something to like keep you going for that long period of time. And you gotta give yourself things like this, small wins, things that you can be proud of, that you'll carry that momentum forward and that enthusiasm, like want to keep learning. So, let's get into hiragana. So, in the Japanese language, the core sound of everything is there's 5 vowels. A, I, U, E, O. And they're always pronounced like this. They are always A, I, U, E, O. There's no A. There's no... Well, there is U, but there's no, crap. It's just these vowels. So, like, I was listening to the radio the other day and heard someone say someone's name is Naomi Kamogawa. There's no ow in Japanese. It's Kamogawa. Kamogawa. A, I, U, E, O. And so the hiragana characters for these sounds are A, I, U, E, O. And so the way you should teach yourself this and learn to write this also is that you just take a single column of sounds for a day. You write their initial characters out and then you just keep writing it. A, I, U, E, O. A, I, U, E, O. And you just chart it out until you've done it 10 times. That's what they teach the children in Japan to do, is write it 10 times, at least. Some places they actually will go 20, but 10 is the standard. And so just chart it out until you have developed muscle memory, essentially, of how to do this. And so after you've spent a day charting out the 5 core vowels, you can next add the consonants. And so these are the core consonants of the Japanese language. K, S, T, N, H, M, R, Y has a few, W has a few, and then the last one is N, which I'll just come back to. But so the next day, what you do is you come in and you add the new column. You combine K with the A for ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. And then you're going to do the same thing. Ka, ki, ku, ke, ko. Write it out 10 times. But also, before you do the ka, ki, ku, ke, ko, you want to write the core vowels that you did yesterday. You want to, affirm in yourself what you did yesterday. It's repetition, it's practice. That's what's helping you develop the muscle memory of how to write these characters, which is going to help with your retention and comprehension of them. And so, day 1, core vowels. Day 2 or day 3, add K. Another 1 to 2 days later, add the S column. Sa, si, su, se, so. Oh my gosh, I just realized that there is an error. That I have say written twice instead of she. But there it is fixed on a previous slide. But so you just kind of go like I said, a column at a time until you are regularly writing out all the columns day by day. Anytime you make a mistake in a character, you write that character 10 times. And you just go through this until you can write this multiple times in a row without making a mistake. And so in this table you see I have 2 red asterisks next to the TI and TU column. And that is because these 2 characters are not pronounced T and Tu, but Chi and Tsu. They're a little irregular like that. And so the other thing in this process that you kind of have to keep an eye out for is maybe you can see there's some similarities in the characters that you need to look out for. So U and Tsu, they have this same characteristic curve, but U has a line above it. And these are the things that you'll flip-flop in the beginning and that you've just got to get right through practice. Ta and Na have the same outside T shape that we know, but to the right of it is different. We have Sa and Chi, which almost just look like a mirror image of one another. But the curvature, the line of Chi is more vertical than Sa also. is a bit of a nuance. And then we have nu and ne, where they have a little arching out curve with a loop at the end of it, like a little pigtail. Then we have nu and me, which are the exact same shape, except nu has the pigtail and me doesn't. You have ha, ho, and ma, which are very similar between the three of them. And then there is ne and re. Oh, and also ru and ro. And so the last few columns of the Y, W, and N, you can see that they don't have E and A sounds. There's just for Y, ya, you, yo, and for W, wa, and wo. And then, as I said, at the very end is a sound that is just N. So you have na, ni, nu, ne, no, N out here off on its own. And if you're learning quickly, you may notice that in the title of this slide, Hiragana, there is a sound that I didn't have on the previous slide, and that is ga. And so there is these consonants in Japanese. They are G, Z, D, B, and P that are like denoted by a sort of phonetical shift. And that, so G comes from K in ka, ki, ku, ke, ko becomes ga, gi, gu, ge, go. And you can see in the rest of the table here, Z comes from S. Sa becomes za. Shi becomes G. Su becomes zu. Se, ze, so, zo. D comes from ta, da, ji. Zu, de, do. And remember, because chi and tsu are different, they're also voiced a little weirdly here, that they're not just di and do, but ji, zu. And then we have ba, bi, bu, be, bo from the H column, but then the P sound is also from the H column, but has a different, with these grammatical marks, they're called dakuten, or colloquially called tenten. But for whatever reason, for the P's, it's from this. I guess it's because it has the same origin of like ba, pa. They have very similar mouth motions for voicing the sound, so they have the same origin of ha, hi, hu, he, ho. But to differentiate them, ba has the double dash and pa has the circle. So now that we've been through the whole table of hiragana, the next one I'm going to show you guys is the katakana table. It's the same thing, a, I, U, E, O, same core vowels, and these are the simplified characters of the katakana alphabet that I was telling you guys about. And missing my red asterisk here, but here again we have chi and tsu, not t, tsu. And I guess, I don't know that I didn't circle them in this one, but you should see some similarities to the original characters that these come from. Like ka especially is extremely similar. Na looks very similar. And he is like almost exactly the same. And you can also in this table see that similar to the katakana, there are some characters that are like dangerously close in similarity that you're going to have to train yourself to recognize the difference between, such as ru and re, and then u and wa. And I'm especially going to go into some of the most notoriously tricky ones are shi, tsu, so, and n. Like, you guys can see these pairs of characters are crazy close, and the way that they are differentiated in Japanese is actually their stroke order, the order in which the strokes are put down. And I have some videos here that I'll show you guys. That is shi. So let's look at it again. The 2 marks and then an upward stroke at the end. So the next one we're going to look at is tsu. The 2 marks, but then the long one starts from the top instead of the bottom. We then have so, and then lastly, But so, like, even if you do the stroke orders correctly, it's... How do you really show the difference? And I want to show you guys something that I picked up while I was living in Japan. It's the, like, the handwriting way to display this. I hope you guys can see this. Okay, and then I need you. Sorry, this is a little bit crazy. I have you guys on my drawing tablet now. So, speaking a little louder so you can still hear me. Whenever you're writing shi, contrary to the stroke order that says you start with these marks, in handwriting, you should do like a check mark followed by your two additional marks. Differentiated from tsu, and that tsu you start at the top and then add your two marks. And so by adding these little like check mark directions, you can like immediately understand is someone writing shi or tsu when they're writing you a letter of some sort. And so I'll clear these out and do same sort of style. You have so and And so, just to kind of round it out like I was doing with the Hiragana, here are the phonetic shifts. Again, same marks on the characters that they come from originally. So, just kind of recapping what we talked about here. If you make a mistake in one of your reviews, like when you're charting out the kana, go back and write it 10 times. Just go column by column, day by day, until you can write the whole table without any mistake for a few days in a row. So the next topic that I want to get to is hatsuon, which is pronunciation. So we already talked about the consonant vowels being a, I, u, e, and o. And so in general, in Japanese, every syllable is pronounced, but there are some differences. So, like for example, at the top I said hatsuon, hatsuon. You should voice every syllable of a word in Japanese. It's pretty monotonic, actually, which makes it really difficult to pick up in hearing really early because it's really hard to tell where something ends or begins because there's very little like inflection in the language. But some of the little tricks to the language are if a word ends in su, you don't actually pronounce the u. You just go s. And the most common example you're going to see of this is the word desu. So it's written desu, but it's pronounced des. Watashi no namae wa Shig Senpai desu. My name is Sig Senpai. But I said des at the end. The next one is that the vowels, like if you listen to music, they'll often be a lot more intentional in pronouncing ai when it's like next to one another like this. But colloquially, when a and e are next to each other, they combine to just become I. And the example I have in this is the little tag ending for words that is kudasai, which means please. So it is kudasai becomes kudasai. And then similarly down here, a and e next to one another become a. And if you have o, u next to one another, it's not, well, sorry, it's pronounced colloquially like o, but it sounds like an o whenever you're hearing people say it. So the next thing I have is remembering that chi is in fact chi, and I forgot to add su being tsu. The last one I have here is the hu. Oh, sorry, not the last one. Second to last one is that hu is like a mixture of the F and the H vocalization. It's not fu, it's not hu, it's fu. And then the last one is that all the R sounds, the R column, have the R and the L sound rolled together. I know, like, everyone out there is familiar with the Japanese stereotype of Japanese people not being able to pronounce like their R's and their L's differently. Rice and lice being the same thing. But this is the reason for that. It's because you don't say ra, ri, ru, re, ro, or la, li, lu, le, lo. But the sound is between all those in ra, ri, ru, re, ro. So, like, you're doing the tongue flick of lali, lule, lo, but pulling away really quickly to still get the r, ra, ri, ra, ri, ru, re, ro. The next point that I have about this is there's a concept in Japanese that, for lack of a better word, it's called glides. And it's the ya, you, yo characters that I mentioned to you guys. They can be glided into the consonant before them. So the examples I have of this is like, this is kya. Ki plus ya becomes kya, such as kyanseru, which is cancel. Like, if you run any of your digital equipment in Japanese, you'll see this word all the time, cancel. And that is what this sound is cancel. And then over here, I have U combined with P to be pew. This word is computer. Computer. Again, you'll see this all the time. And then, so for the last one is yo, combined with shi to be sho. This is shoku, which is shock. You can also have this done with the vowels themselves. And the example I have of this is A behind hu, so it's ha. This word is fanu, which is just fan, like that you cool yourself off with. The next one we have is A behind U. And so this is actually like in W. So the example I have here is the name Uesuri. Uesuri, which is Wesley. But if you just like, if you're typing in Japanese and you type W-E, it will automatically generate this Ue for you. And then one of the last things I'm going to go through is that something you'll come across in reading, because again, you're learning the kana so that you can read these sorts of things to know how to properly pronounce things. And that is, you'll sometimes see a smaller sized tsu put into the middle of a word. And what this means is for you to insert a sort of pause before the sound that follows it. And so the first example I have here is, the word on the left is gakko. And this, which means painter or sketch. And this is compared to the word for school, which is gakko. So I heard you should hear like there's a small little stop before the ko. Gakko. Compared to gakko. 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 Another one I have here is, this one will actually hang you up when like talking to people, is on the left it's mate, which is like a sort of like, it's not necessarily stern, but like it's an instruction. You're telling someone to wait. And this is different to mate, which is what like a more like kind request. Like this is what you would say to a friend when you're asking them to wait. Mate ne! Mate! Compared to mate. Or what you'll actually hear is mate kudasai. Mate. Mate. So, like, it's a little tricky, but you'll catch on to it. And the last thing I have here is hapyo, which that's what I have written on the left, but hapyo, as I have it written on the left, isn't a word in Japanese. If you say hapyo instead of hapyo, it just sounds like you don't know how to pronounce the word hapyo, which means presentation. So, like, you can lean into it early to, like, get into the habit of putting it in there. And as you become able to speak the language more quickly, the stop becomes less jarring and more quickly and more quick and more natural. So the last thing that I have here that I want to go into with you guys is study tools and techniques. And I'm going to start with study materials. And the first thing I have written here is the textbooks Genki 1 and 2. These are the textbooks that I learned out of whenever I was taking Japanese at university. And my honest opinion of these books is these are really good books to learn out of. I thought they were great. They helped me a lot. There are things that I wish they had done differently. And that is actually, like, essentially what this video series is going to be, is that after I was living in Japan and had become much better at the language, I was thinking to myself one day, like, knowing all the things I know now and looking back at how I was taught, what are some things that I wish I had been taught differently that I feel like would have been more helpful to have been exposed to earlier on, or if they'd been presented in a different order. And I wrote like a text document that is essentially like how I guess I would have like rearranged Genki plus included some things that Genki didn't have to teach a person Japanese. The next book that I have here is the series Mina no Nihongo, which means Japanese for everybody. This is also a really commonly used book series. This is their go-to actually in Japan. Like in America, you're more likely to come across Genki in a classroom, but in Japan, you're more likely to come across Mina no Nihongo. I haven't been all the way through these books. I've just been through a bit of them, like enough to like just compare them to the other books. It is also a good book. I think I still prefer Genki a little bit. The next thing that I have here is the book series called Nihongo so Matome. And if you see in the titles of these books, like these all say N3. And what this is for is what's called the JLPT, the Japanese Language Proficiency Test. If you want to ever officially certify yourself in your Japanese proficiency, this is the exam that you take. It's offered once a year in the United States. In Japan, it's offered twice a year. Once at the end of the summer and once at the end of the year. But in America, it's only offered once at the end of the year. And there's 5 levels, with N5 being like elementary level and N1 being like college master level. I'm talking like I've shown Japanese exchange students that came to America to where I went to school. We showed them the N1 JLPT, and there was questions on there that they weren't even sure of. It's for like people that really intimately have studied and know the language and want to show the highest mastery of it. Conversational Japanese is like N2. Or like fully fluent Japanese is like N2. I was like at an N3 level whenever I left Japan. And so if you want to study specifically for this exam, these books are great. I highly recommend them. The last thing that I have here is the Kodansha Kanji Learner Dictionary. It just has like every kanji in the language and is just an amazing look-up resource to have in your personal library. Like in my library, I have every single one of these books that I have just shown to you, as I think they are all amazing reference resources to have. Another thing that I'm going to bring up is I have a number of web apps that I use on my phone. And so like another thing that I do that I guess I didn't mention is that like my cell phone, I operate in Japanese, and my computer, I operate frequently in Japanese, and like, as much as I can, any digital thing, I try to learn it in Japanese so that I am just like constantly interacting with the language on a regular basis so that it just becomes like it stops becoming a foreign language at some point. And that's the goal that you're trying to get to, is that it's just another language. That you're not translating it in your head, that you look and you just immediately, innately understand what is being communicated to you. And putting digital items that you have in a foreign language, like, I mean, after you've gotten to a certain level of proficiency, again, you have to learn the kana to even be able to look at the loan words like computer and cancel to do something like this. But once you get to a certain level, start doing this. It's really helpful, in my opinion. And the first phone app that I want to show you guys is the JED, Japanese English Dictionary. I use this like daily, guys. Whenever I was studying, whenever I was living in Japan, multiple times a day, I would pull this bad boy out. It's hands down the best Japanese language app resource that you can have for yourself. The next one that I highly recommend is Edict. And what I love Edict for, and what I use Edict for, is that I use it to look up kanji that I don't know. Like, to use JED, you need to like at least know part of the word that you're trying to look up, that you can type it into the dictionary and look it up. If you just like walking around come across a kanji that you have no idea what it is and no means to look it up, that is what Edict is for. And it has a number of methods in which you can do it, such as you can, I'm blanking now on the name of the method, but like it breaks the character down into like, is it split into top and bottom pieces or left and right pieces? Is there an enclosure in it? Is there something inside of it? Like, it's the skip layout. That's what it's called. The skip layout will let you, by shapes, try to search for this kanji. And it also has a handwriting input that you can just draw in the kanji yourself and then search for it. The dangerous thing about that, though, is that you have to use proper stroke order or it will confuse itself. If you use the wrong number of strokes, for sure it won't be able to find it. But if you even draw something in the wrong order, it will struggle. So like, you have to be pretty experienced with how Japanese kanji are drawn to be able to rely on that regularly. The next thing I want to show you guys is something called Weblio. And this is just an app version of, it's actually a website. And if you're ever in Japan, this is the website that like all Japanese people use to translate their Japanese into English. Like, they don't go to Google Translate, they go to Weblio, and it's honestly an amazing dictionary. The last thing that I have is something called Anki, which is a repetitive learning thing, and I'll bring it up for you guys really quickly. So this is what it looks like, and I have just like here's where I was studying vocab for JLPT N3. Here's where I was studying vocab for JLPT N4 level. And then like here's decks that I made whenever I was living in Japan. And it's just like, okay, let's this says Suguni Oboero, which means learn these immediately. And I'm gonna study these. And like it's been so long since I've looked at this, I've already forgotten what this is. Boto, being immersed in, totally focused on. So I've got to try that again. This is the repeat button. And I mean, this is not like a Japanese only program. This definitely runs in English. Again, this is just me running my personal life in Japanese as much as I can. To go across. Korosu? No, not korosu. That's murder. Oh my god. Watarimasu. Misunderstanding is fukai? Gokai is misunderstanding. But you get the point, right? Like you have a card front side and then you have a card back side with the answer. And just by going through this flashcard system, you'll learn vocabulary really quickly. And so something that I read when I was really early into this was people recommended learning just 7 new things a day. And like I did that at first, but I was like, this is super easy. Like, I feel like I should be pushing myself a lot more than 7 characters per day. And so like I had bumped it up to 10 and then 14. And it was still easy, but what I didn't plan for was if you're learning 14 new words a day and you're spacing them out based on how good of a job you're remembering them, there's going to eventually come a day where you have 100 flashcards that you have to review, and you're going to be like, oh my god, how did this happen? That's how it happened, because of just the sheer volume of cards you're going through. So like, I know, like, you obviously want to dive headfirst into this. That's why you're watching the video series. But, like, you also have to responsibly pace yourself to allow yourself to effectively uptake the language. So, I will definitely recommend just sticking to the 7 new words a day, learning through Anki. And just every day going through that and going through the cards that you have to do. Because the other thing that I was going to say about when you have 100 cards that you have to do, it's really easy to be like, I don't have time to go through all this. And you probably don't, but what you wind up doing is not doing a lesson that day. And if you've been doing Anki like every day for months, and then you don't do it a day, and then you don't do it the next day or the third day, like, you're starting to find reasons that you don't want to do Anki because there's like 100 flashcards waiting on you, and now there's 107 or 114 flashcards waiting on you. Next thing you know, you've gone 3 months and you haven't looked at Anki, and you haven't been rehearsing the things that you need to rehearse to keep them in your mind. And so you've now set yourself back, and you're going to have to re-teach yourself all these things that you used to just be like whenever I was doing Anki every day, I could go through 300 Japanese characters and just instantly, looking at the kanji, spout them out, because I was just regularly engaging with it. And so that's why the last thing that I have down here is your number one most important tool for learning Japanese is exposure and repetition. Just in some way, exposing yourself to the language every single day as much as you can. Like, and it's really hard to do when you're not living in the country. If you didn't speak a word of Japanese and someone just dropped you off on the farm of some old couple in the middle of Hokkaido and they speak no English at all, by the end of 6 months, you're going to be half competent in the language. You're going to at least be competent enough in the language to, like, interact with these people that you're living with and, like, ask for food and, like, water and rest and things like that, because your brain just goes into survival mode and just starts sucking up everything around it. So when you're living in the country, you learn the language much faster, obviously. But if you're not in the country, you got to put in work, man. And, like, I'm here with you guys. I've been needing to put in work myself as I've been back to the US from living in Japan, and this is like, me doing this video series is actually a big part of that for me. This is me getting back to the language. So I'm in it with you guys. We've got to make a commitment with each other that every day we're going to do a little bit and get a little bit better every day. So, last thing I'm going to have is the same with self-plugging. If this video series, or if this video, I guess, is helpful for you, give it a like, subscribe to my channel so that you can see whenever I do more of these. Follow me on Twitter at SigmaIsGreater, so I will make announcements of every time I have a new one of these videos ready to come out. And the last thing I have is, if there's anything that, like, you personally want to learn, like maybe you're not a beginner in Japanese, but you just have something that you're not being able to find a good question or a good answer to your question online, get in contact with me, throw me a buck, I will find your answer. If I don't know it, I will contact Harukaze-sensei and we will get your answer. I will make personal video lessons like this that I've made in this way for you if there's something that you want to cover. Just get in contact with me. The whole point of this is me teaching people. So give me ideas and suggestions of what you want to learn. From there, until next time, ja mata ne!